Hello, Leonid, and welcome on the podcast Stories from War. I'm really glad that you are joining this podcast to share your story. So, first of all, Leonid, how are you doing right now?
Hi, Fanny. Thanks a lot for the invitation and happy to share my story with you and with your community. I'm doing well. It's Friday evening. It's been a long week and a long day with a lot of things we've done today, including for Ukraine, but happy to share with you tonight.
Yeah, awesome. So, maybe can you start by explaining a little bit who you are, where you come from, where you are at the moment, and what you do?
Sure, sure, with a pleasure. So my name is Leonid, Leo, to be for short. I'm originally from Odessa, Ukraine, a city
Okay.
in the south on the Black Sea. I think it's a specific city because everyone who's born there loves it, like literally
Okay.
loves it. I think that's the city that you cannot not being attached to. So before the
Okay.
war, I always used to say that I'm from Odessa, it's in Ukraine. Now I
Mm-hmm.
feel very proud being Ukrainian, so I'm saying I'm from Ukraine, from
Mm-hmm.
Odessa specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent my first 20, 21 years of my life in Odessa, and I definitely enjoyed it. I still have lots of friends there, a lot of people I know, my family there, so I'm still very
Okay.
much connected to it. And in 2010, I think something like that, I moved to Paris for my studies, where I've basically been since then, even though I've spent a bit of my time in the US, a little bit in Italy. I've been an entrepreneur for all this time, building a few companies. I've done it before moving out of Ukraine. I had two startups
Okay.
in Odessa, and now I'm working here. And since the beginning of the war, as most Ukrainians are, I'm very much involved in the support, providing all the help we can for the effort that our country is doing.
Yeah, okay. So right now you're an entrepreneur and you're living in Paris. And can you explain a little bit more about Ensemble Ukraine? Because to be really transparent, we met through a friend, and I joined Ensemble Ukraine. And can you explain a little bit what it is? What was the genesis of it, and how you joined Ensemble Ukraine?
Sure. So first of all, thanks a lot for joining us. You and I are taking care of one of the projects we are doing, particularly buying, how do you call them, medical cars for.
Ambulances.
Oh yeah, right. I'm also so. Thanks a lot for your help. Assembly Khan is an association, an NGO, I think you would say in English, that was created
Yeah.
just a few days after the beginning of the war. What I find really beautiful about it is that it was built by French guys who just found it absolutely unacceptable what was happening. One of them is a little bit connected to Ukraine, all the others are absolutely not. And
Mhm.
they've all given from the very beginning big chunk of their time and a lot of their effort to build the first help and efforts what we needed. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. All of them are, or most of them are actually entrepreneurs working in tech. There's
Mhm.
a community of tech entrepreneurs in Paris, which is called, in France, which is called the Gallion Project. And
Mhm.
those are pretty, let's say, founders of pretty big and successful startups. So that's how we know each other and that's how they knew each other. So that's where it
Mhm.
has started from the beginning, quite a lot around entrepreneurship and around tech companies who were the first sponsors of the activity.
Mhm.
It turned out that I was also looking for bringing help and supporting
Mhm.
the war effort, even though for the first 2 weeks I was pretty much lost the ground with everything that was
Mhm.
happening. It was personally a very complicated moment because I was selling my company at that moment, but pretty quickly I managed to channel the frustration into doing something, and something
Okay.
became working first with few associations. One of them was Ensemble Ukraine. Ensemble Ukraine was the one developing the fastest among those I was working with, helping. And
Mhm.
first, I took care of something that I never thought I would know well and work with, which is protecting gear. So bulletproof helmets and bulletproof vests, something that was really needed in the beginning for to help people, to help even the journalists, not only those on the war effort, but also volunteers who went to the war who were not supported by the government initially. So I took charge of this particular part of the activity of the association, combining it with a few others. And it turned out that this autumn, since we already knew each other well with the team, Jérôme, who's one of the founders and co-president of the association, asked me to overtake the operations and the presidency of the structure of this NGO in order to continue running it, since the old team was quite, I would say, worn out, at least tired of
Yeah.
the first 6 months, because the first 6 months were very intensive. There were everything to put on place, but also we had to react on everything that was going on. So we've done a lot of different things. First we were helping refugees to come, to find
Yeah.
transport, to flee basically the bombardments,
Yeah.
to save their lives, then to find a place to live here. It was emotionally very tough. Now, fortunately, these kind of let's say problems are more or less taken care of by much bigger organizations who have all the structure for that. So now we can build our activity with more middle and long-term perspective, with a final goal, which I'm saying, to make the war a little bit shorter. If we manage, thanks to our effort, to shorten the war by a few hours, then it means we've contributed to it, and that's what we're fighting for.
Okay. Awesome. And going back to your story, when you were like during your childhood, looking back at it now, what was the Russian influence where you were living?
It's a good question because my native language is actually Russian. Odessa is the
Hmm.
city which has a pretty strong Russian influence. So I took Russian with I speak Russian with my parents, with my friends. 90,
Hmm.
probably 9% of Odessa speaks Russian. I've learned Ukrainian at school, and
Hmm.
first, for a few months, it felt like a foreign language, even though then I've spent 15 years of my life speaking every other day
Hmm.
Ukrainian. I've forgotten it since, so I had to make an effort now to remind myself of it and to start using it again. It was quite
Hmm.
funny, but now, fortunately, it's mostly back, also including thanks to some team members of Ensemble Ukraine. So for
Hmm.
me, in my childhood, Russian culture, Russian history was actually just part of our global history, our global culture.
Hmm.
And I would say the way it was presented, and it's still presented by the Russians, that we are two neighbor, let's say, even brotherhood
Hmm.
people and countries. That's absolutely the way I felt. Yes, we had some differences. Yet we had two different countries, but like, let's say, France and Belgium, two
Yeah.
countries, but very close, culturally close, friendly, and except for some rules, maybe some different language pronunciations between French from here and from there, or from the north of Belgium, there are not
Hmm.
much differences. So that's the way I was perceiving
Hmm.
Russian culture. And I actually lived for some time in Moscow. Done my first internship in Russia when I was, I think, 15 or 16 years old. I
Okay.
had quite a few Russian friends because, in most families you have someone living in one or another
Yeah.
country. At least it used to be the
Yeah.
case. So it just felt like another big, well-known, pretty close country with
Yeah.
some differences, but
You
that's it.
When you were in Russia studying, did you feel like they looked at you differently because you were from Ukraine, or Russian people were pretty much feeling the same as you were, which is, well, yeah, like we are different countries, but somehow there is a brotherhood happening.
I've never felt it. I've never seen it,
Hmm.
but it's not really representative because it's been, I think, 2008, 2009 when I lived there. Since then, I've
Hmm.
visited the country a few times, but I've never spent much time there. So haven't felt it, absolutely not. What is quite
Hmm.
interesting speaking about that, I think there are two parts to it that I would like to share. First, Russians were saying that Russians Russian-speaking people in Ukraine are not well treated in some ways. So I'm Russian-speaking. Actually, our president's first language, as far as I know, is Russian. And then now it's switched. Now definitely he's Ukrainian-speaking, and sometimes he forgets Russian words. And many people are. And I've never felt in Ukraine that speaking Russian was in any case, a problem, a handicap, or an issue. They were saying that
Okay.
Russian propaganda was saying a lot that if you go to Western Ukraine, then you have nationalists there, the people who wouldn't accept, wouldn't love speaking Russian. And a few times I've told you that I was speaking Ukrainian at school, but then a few years later, maybe 10 years later, when I graduated from school, I wasn't using it much. So I still was understanding 100% as well as Russian, but it was a bit more complicated for me to speak Ukrainian. So a few times I found myself in Western Ukraine in small villages, where actually I had to speak Russian, and they were responding to me in Ukrainian. And in this case, never, ever, it felt like anything wrong, problematic whatsoever. So until the war began, it started in 2014 with the first part of it, and definitely accelerated. Not even accelerated, completely changed in 2022. There wasn't any idea of any hostility, anything, any big differences whatsoever. What is also interesting, second what I would like probably to share with you, that my girlfriend is actually Russian. We've been together since 7 years, but she's been living in Europe for the last, I think, 11, 12 years. So she's now a bit more European even than Russian. I have a lot of Russian friends also here because I've done international studies in English. So even though it was in Paris, it was one of the schools who taught in English. Wow. So, of course, we had a Russian student there, and a few of them became my friends. So even living here for the last 12 years, I didn't really feel a difference with the Russians. But this is an important point. People I was exposed to are not necessarily representative. And I've talked to them, we discussed that many times in the beginning of the war. I was saying them like, how comes it possible that the way I perceive Russia, the way I see it, what I've seen there, because I visited multiple times after the 2014, how could these people become what we see now? I should say at least nationalists, but actually quite almost Nazi. How is possible?
Yeah.
And what my friends were telling me that what I've been exposed to is not representative. Russians who are new here, who are living here for the 10, 15 years, not those who stay there. They were not brainwashed. The cities I've visited, city center of Moscow, is not representative of Russia, even though definitely more than my friends here. People who live here actually mostly even opposed to what's happening there. And a few friends of mine used to go to opposition strikes in 2008, 2010. So unfortunately, it turns out that the perception that we might have here, that we might build here, we might have created ourselves here, is not representative of what's going on in Russia. And the same, I think, what I've seen in 2008. Did I feel any hostility whatsoever? No, but probably it's not representative because people have been exposed to are not, let's say, average, who construct the Russia of today.
Yeah. Okay. And talking about language, I can see in the Ukrainian community of people here now there is a lot of talk and a lot of rejection of the Russian language, understandably. And do you feel that you want or you decide that you're going to speak more Ukrainian, or you just like with Russian is the same and you're okay with it?
It's a question kind of pride, I would say. So I'm deliberately making an effort now to speak Ukrainian when I can. When I can choose between Russian and Ukrainian, I do choose Ukrainian, even though it's more complicated for me. Out of all the languages I speak, Ukrainian is probably the most probing for me to communicate, since I haven't been using it for dozens of years. Even my parents, who haven't ever really learned Ukrainian because their school was in Russian and their university was in Russian, and they were exposed to Ukrainian only after 1991, even they, especially my mother, is trying to speak Ukrainian when she can.
Yeah.
And this is showing a lot. So people are trying to do that for two things. First, for the pride, and second, just naturally, emotionally, we want to have nothing to do with Russia anymore.
It's kind of a political statement to say, like, when you speak and now that you decide to speak more Ukrainian, don't you think?
It is, but I think it's mostly emotional. You
Yeah.
just don't want to
Okay.
have anything in common with people who are killing you, literally killing
Yeah.
you, your friends, and your families.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I mean, what about your girlfriend? Because I mean, what about the Russian that are living here for, like so long? It must be also really like uncomfortable. I don't know if she encountered, like any animosity because she speaks Russian and she's Russian, or how is it for her?
It's a little speaking Russian because you see, with my parents, they managed to visit me for the holidays for a few weeks. We were speaking Russian, but
Yeah.
even though we had Ukrainians, then there are guys from Baltic states who can speak Russian. There are Kazakhs who can speak Russian. So Russian
Hmm.
language doesn't mean that you are Russian.
Yeah.
First point, which is pretty important, quite complicated at this moment to distinguish.
Yeah.
Fortunately, with my girlfriend and with all my friends, at least those with whom we communicate, we continue being friends. We completely share the point of view, the same
Yeah.
with her family. So fortunately, we don't have any issues here. Even though I have a few friends here who disagree with their parents, especially grandparents, who even started
Hmm.
talking to them because they completely view differently the things what are happening, and this is unfortunately, I would say, sad because even the
Hmm.
family is being broken by the propaganda and brainwashing of the Russian
Yeah.
TV. To me, it's mind-boggling that this can exist and this can be done, can exist.
Yeah.
The question was, how does she feel? It's also quite interesting. I mean, probably not interesting. It's not a good word, but she's in between of two things. First,
Hmm.
she shares all the pain, and there's many Russians who
Yeah.
share the same view. She shares the pain for the Ukraine, but she also has her own pain for her country, because
Hmm.
the future of her country is being completely torn away, completely destroyed, and she
Yeah.
has her family there. She has her young brother there who doesn't know what to do. Should he stay there where his
Hmm.
life is being built, was built until now, or should he leave the country and then try
Hmm.
building from
Hmm.
scratch? But he's not 15 years old anymore. So she
Hmm.
also has this pain, and then she has kind of a guilt every time she's asked where you're from. She feels sorry for
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
Russian. She's literally waiting for a French passport that she's eligible for. She should get soon,
Yeah.
just to be able not to say I'm Russian. So
Yeah.
even though it's something that a bit more complicated for Ukrainian to feel now because we have so much of our own pain that
Yeah.
it overshadows these kind of problems, but I can at least see that for
Hmm.
some Russians, those who share our point of view, the situation is also quite tricky and complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What was your life trajectory just before the war? And I would like to have maybe if you could share your emotion first when Crimea happened, when it was taken by Russia. First, did you expect anything like that? Like in the air, did you feel okay? Might happen, maybe. And where were you at that time? Were you already in France in 2014?
Um, I remember well that moment when I learned that there was something happening because we didn't know first what was it. I was driving a car in Paris. I was already living here. It was a friend of mine, actually a partner also of mine who lives in Rome, also from Odessa, who called me and said that there is something happening in Ukraine. In Crimea, it looks like it's being overtaken by Russians. I remember very well. I was driving from Place de Nation in Paris to La Bastille. I remember the street where I've been to because it was such a strong
Okay.
message.
Yeah.
Completely surprised by that. So no, absolutely, I didn't expect that. I don't think that anyone except maybe military and political guys who might have had some information, I don't think anyone would expect that. Even in 2022, a year ago, we didn't expect that. Honestly, it was just unbelievable and impossible to imagine. can you imagine today France are taking, I don't going with war on Belgium or
Yeah.
on Corse? Can you just
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
that happening? That's the
Yeah.
way we felt like,
No, absolutely
no way,
not.
come on,
Yeah.
that's impossible. And I was completely persuaded that if that order was given, imagine there are fools in Kremlin who can decide that order. At least 90% of people and of soldiers just wouldn't follow it. What a hell! What an idiot would send a rocket to the city where his family might live, where his friends live. Just from it was inconceivable. I could
Hmm.
imagine few fools. Any society has fools and idiots. Okay, 2, 5, 10%, that's it. It turned out that 2, 5, 10% are those who are not fools in Russia, unfortunately, and others were just completely brainwashed. And also
Hmm.
remember well the morning when I learned that the war has started, because it was my girlfriend who woke me up at 6 a.m. saying that Odessa is being bombarded, that my city is being bombarded,
Yeah.
so where my friends, my family is.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
knew that it might happen. We completely didn't imagine that.
Yeah.
So she was the first to read the news. I remember her very well, waking me up, crying, completely lost, and saying me
Hmm.
that. So I went to wash my face to wake up a little bit, and first thing I called my parents. Then I
Hmm.
started calling my friends, texting my friends, and
Hmm.
I think I remember that moment for my whole life. And for me personally, it was also a very tough moment because I was in the middle, I've told you, of negotiations with the
Yeah.
partners for selling the company. The negotiations we've been into for almost a year, and we were supposed to sign it. We have done it actually end of February, so just a few days after the beginning of the war, and I had a
Hmm.
lots of work to do. So first I had to tell them that sorry, if today it's possible for me to do anything, and then I had to get back to that. And actually, it helped me a bit because it permitted me
Hmm.
to get concentrated on something and not just checking the news
Yeah.
every second. To what point we didn't expect that? Speaking basically about my parents, by some chance they don't do it regularly, but just 23rd of February, just the night before the war began, they went for a dinner and then to bars with the friends of theirs, as if they felt that it's going to be the last calm night for we don't know how
Okay.
much time.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to sleep before they went to sleep, even though we have 1 hour difference. And normally I fall asleep a bit early because I'm slightly younger than my parents are. So I remember them having a party. Uh, and the next morning, just a few hours later, the bombardment started.
Yeah. Okay. So I think like the world was in shock, literally, about what was happening,
Absolutely.
because I think no one could imagine something like that. That's for sure. And your parents are still in Odessa at the moment.
Yes. Yes. We were trying to build contingency plans with them just in case. I was asking them, especially my father, okay, if it happens, what would you do? Are we ready? Do you have some cash just in case the banking system doesn't work, whatsoever? When I called them on the 21st, they said, especially again, my father, that he wouldn't leave. My mother wouldn't leave without my father, of course. And his reasoning was that I have a company, have my employees, I have some responsibility for them, but also if I leave my country, my city, what are we fighting for? So his first reflex was to go to his office to reassure his team members, to ensure that he can pay the salaries by the end of the month, because it was just a few days before the end of the month. And lots of people have reacted the same way. And on one hand, I didn't agree with them because I didn't want my parents being exposed to such a big danger, especially the first day. We had no idea what was going to happen. But on the other hand, I completely understood their motivation, and probably I would have done the same. And with a lot of friends, we found ourselves in the same circumstances, where our parents, probably 9 cases of time, decided to stay, and then within a few days, it wasn't possible to
Hmm.
live anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And so your father has a company over there, and he wanted to
Yes.
stay to keep the company up and make sure that all the employees can have a job, and it's still running at the moment.
Fortunately, it's still running. He still manages to run it even though it's production side, so he depends on the electricity. So every day it's being cut more now. He had a few employees who went to the war, to whom we both had to buy all the protective gear so that they could have the best possible one. And for one, it's already saved at least his health, maybe his life. So he's being completely exposed to it. But fortunately, the company continues running, continues paying taxes, salaries. And he's been doing his best, what he told me, to pay as much as he can, as he should, to the government and to people to support the country's effort.
Okay. It's hard to imagine a country at war. How do you handle the economy? Because obviously the economy is going to crash down to a certain level. And how do you keep running all the business or most of the businesses when you have issues with electricity and like, maybe as you're saying, your employee going and joining the military maybe, or doing something to defend the country, and therefore you know how you can help. So it's a good insight that you're giving. And what was your thought process, and why did you decide to stay in France?
I would just go make a small comment about what you just said, and then I'll answer your question. So it's impressive to see how Ukrainians have adapted, but I would say, I hope it's not even only about Ukrainians, but it's about human beings. I have a feeling that it's something inherited that we have inside of us, that as a human being, we are much stronger than we think, and we are capable to adapt to so many circumstances. Fortunately, in our world, in our countries, we are no more exposed, or almost no more exposed to such risks. And the worst thing that has happened to us in recent history is COVID, but even here we are so much protected by the systems, by the medicines, by the government. So it was much, much, much better than it could have been otherwise, and than it was actually in other countries. So it's really amazing to see this force of human adaptability, then which transmits to military, to economical, to political, to society. And people, especially Ukrainians now, they can't conceive any other possibility but winning, but finishing this war and building the better future. And that's why they're doing everything they can for that. And actually, the economy has grown since the beginning of the war. Of course, it's lost, I think, the beginning 40% of its GDP production, but it has started growing again because some people left, some people came back. Companies got relocated to the Western Ukraine or to the Central Ukraine. People had adapted their businesses, production, the logistics have adapted. And it's amazing to see that the economy started growing again. So this resistance, it's beautiful. And I hope that it's not only Ukrainian, but all human beings have this capability inside. But I hope that also we will not have to use it. Right.
What was your thought process? Because I'm sure when the war started, you had 10,000 ideas of, like maybe should I go back? Should I stay here? Should
Sure.
I go somewhere else? So, what was your thought process and your emotion along the way that led you to the decision of staying here and doing resistance here in France?
Right. As an entrepreneur, I'm thinking in terms of efficiency and of impact I can have. So I'm actually a reservist. I'm a officer of reserve of Ukraine.
Okay.
So might have served. If I come to Ukraine, I may serve. I have some education for that. But my question was actually, how could I have the biggest impact? And even though I have some training for that, definitely it's not the best, and I'm far from being good at it. It was just a few months of training. And my question was, okay, can I better help being in Ukraine in a fight effort, or can I better help here ensuring what I can do, ensuring first that there are protection gears that I send. And altogether, I think we've sent something like 500 protection sets for helmets and bulletproof jackets. So that help I hope 500 people that otherwise wouldn't have this kind of protection, wouldn't have any protection at all. Then we started helping, sending medical gear. We've sent thousands of, you call them garrots in French. I think in English it would be tourniquets, something like that. So it's
Tourniquets. Yeah.
equipment that stops bleeding, which saves the lives. And there are quite a few examples like that. So I decided to stay here and to have my effort here because I think I can have more impact from here. From the very beginning, I got in touch with our embassy, with other Ukrainians I know here, also with the friends in Kiev I know. Asked actually what should be done also, but in the beginning, and I think it's still the case, there are more people willing to serve than the army was capable of training, equipping, and putting efficiently on lines. So again, my decision was driven by efficiency. And today, that's also why I'm trying to drive Ensemble Ukraine to helping shorten the war. There are a lot of cases when our help is asked for people here. We've been doing it in the beginning because people are lost and there are no other systems put in place today. There are enough of them. There are many other NGOs who are providing support. And of course, a lot of refugees find themselves in very complicated conditions, but at least they can find other solutions here. So that's why all the effort, or at least 90, probably 5% of it, we're driving towards Ukraine to help the NGOs, the organizations, people, structures that wouldn't have financing otherwise, that wouldn't have equipment otherwise. For the moment now, for example, now, of course, everyone knows that the generators are a big use. So we're buying and sending generators to hospitals, to NGOs who are using it in the best way possible. We are again sending some medical equipment. We're helping now to restructure one hospital in Kharkov. Restructure, I mean, just to refurbish it a little bit so that it could continue functioning, or sending equipment so that a field hospital could be built, and so on and so on. So I think this helps more people, and this helps the Ukrainian effort more, hoping that, as I told you in the beginning, that this brings the Russian war against Ukraine, it makes it shorter. Even for a few minutes or a few hours, that would be enough.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that would be also already worth of the effort we're doing.
Yeah. Stopping the war for 3 minutes. No shellings, no gunfights, no people dying. I mean, for sure.
That's worth the
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah. Okay. And what will you do once the war is over and Ukraine wins?
Personal side, I will continue building companies, something I love and something I'm still doing. And I've launched another startup. Getting ready to launch another one in green tech, which is also something that is important now, planetary level, not only Ukrainian level. But for Ukraine, I hope to be able to continue my effort. I hope that Ensemble Ukraine will be able to do it. And we hope to be able to contribute to restructuring of the country, to rebuilding the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where my knowledge and experience, and also of many members of Ensemble Ukraine, can be useful is in bringing and building bridges in between two business cultures. Because Ukrainian business culture is more, I would say, based on handshaking.
Mm-hmm.
Here, the culture is of a lot of rioting. In our case, we'll do
Yeah.
things fast. We'll just agree, okay, let's do it, and the business can be created the next day, and
Mm-hmm.
deals can go. But also, it can change the day later. Here,
Mm-hmm.
people will take months and sometimes years to write everything down. But once it's written, it doesn't move. So the cultures are
Mm-hmm.
different. They can work absolutely together, and people already learned a lot to work together. But I think there will be a lot to be done to help companies invest in Ukraine, to help Ukrainians come economically
Okay.
here, to bring money to reconstruct the country. So that's something I hope
Mm-hmm.
we'll be able to contribute to. But first, we have to win, and for now, we are concentrated on that.
Yeah. Of course. And how do you see? I know it's just looking at a crystal ball, but how do you see, and how long do you think it's going to take?
I'm not asking the question anymore. There is a saying from the Second World War from those who were in the concentration camps. They say that the first who lost the energy and the hope for those who were
Mm-hmm.
hoping that it would be short.
Mm-hmm.
The next ones who lost the energy and capability to resist were those who thought it would never end. And those who survived are those who just didn't pose that question, but were doing what they had to do day after day, day after day. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I'm telling people around me. Just let's do what we have to do. Let's be able to continue this effort for years if it's needed, but let's hope that it finishes tomorrow, and let's do everything we can for that.
Okay. And I hope someday we can go and see Odessa with a peaceful sky
It's not a hope, I'm sure about that. I just hope it's going to be soon, but I'm sure it's going to be the case,
soon.
and I'm sure we're going to do it. And I appreciate a lot that so many people who are helping us, uh, who had no connection whatsoever with Ukraine until
Mhm.
now, saying that they're ready to come, they're willing to come whenever it's ready. And one of them, one of our suppliers, actually saying that I'm going to buy one-way ticket and stay as long as it's needed, to also to help them rebuild it. So
Yeah.
it brings a lot of hope, I would say, enjoy, energy to see the support from people here. My mother visited me a few months ago, and she knew I was telling her that people are supporting, that it's not only media saying that, hey, Europe is for
Mhm.
Ukraine, but she was perceiving it a little bit as hype and again media saying that when she saw people really just coming on the street who were talking for some reason asking where you're from and hearing that from Ukraine, giving all the support. You could feel it even though she couldn't understand most of them. Uh,
Mhm.
Hugging. We met people from France, of course, from Belgium, from Germany. A few of them knew how to speak Russian. Some of them lived in Ukraine, had been there. Others couldn't share any word with her, but just could transmit the support, and that gave her, I know, a lot of energy, belief, and hope. And this is really important, I think, for Ukraine, for Ukrainians to know that so many people are with them. And that's why the European countries are doing what they can do, even though it should have been done faster because we have such a big enemy. But
Mhm.
the support being done, being given is unprecedented. And it's never been done on such scale. Unfortunately, such kind of war has never happened since the Second World War, neither.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a person that I interviewed before who said something, and I was like, "Oh, okay." That I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's really good the way he said it. He said the governments, they just hate Russia, so they want to do everything they can to stop Russia. But the people, this is just love. This is just love and shared value for Ukrainian. Because I mean, I have absolutely zero tie with Ukraine. I've never been there. I didn't have any Ukrainian friend before. I have many now, and I'm happy about it. But why? Getting involved into something you don't necessarily have personal connection with, because the connection is a shared value, something that's really really important to your core and speaks to you way beyond your nationality, the language you speak. It's freedom, and it's the right response when you're well, victim of an aggression of that magnitude. I mean, that's quite crazy. For me, it's World War III, in the sense that, yes, of course, there is no war declaration written on a paper, but in actual fact, it's a World War III, and Ukraine is paying the price of blood. We, as like allies, we are paying a small price.
Yes, and I hope that it will stay in Ukrainian terms, that we'll be able to win it there, that normal cities will be destroyed neither in Ukraine or in other countries. Because if it's not stopped there, it will continue.
Mhm.
Structurally, the Russian government and Putin can't hold to the power without the war anymore,
Mhm.
since he's created this monster. But what you've said is much more important. This love and these shared values, giving so much hope, so much warmth in the heart. I felt like 2022 was the most complicated ever year in my life, and at the same moment, I felt a lot of gratitude, and my gratitude was to the people I've met, to the
Mhm.
people like you who you're saying you didn't have any link whatsoever, and you're giving your time. You're creating this channel. You're helping Ensemble Ukraine. I know the other things that you're doing. You had people Ukrainians living at your place just because you can't accept this because something wrong
Mhm.
for you. And I've seen so many stories of people showing up their best possible side, showing
Mhm.
this, as you said, pure love. And this is beautiful. And I hope that out of all this darkness, what will come out is the beautiful nature of human beings.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Leonid. I think we should finish the podcast on that note. Okay. Do you want to add anything about Ensemble Ukraine?
Um, Maybe just two words. And so we are building our activities. We are relaunching some of our activities, doing more and more with every week. And today we're almost 20 volunteers giving their time and effort, and all the help is welcome. More we are, more we can do. So if there is anyone listening to you who is willing to give some time, some financial help, or maybe can help us with bringing his company donations or material donations of what is being needed in Ukraine now, it's always welcome. Any help is welcome and would help us bring our goal a bit closer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leonid. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for what you're doing, and thanks to all your audience for listening to us and for their support.